I'm Remi Ogunsanya. There's a lot going on in the business world today that affects business owners and their finances. Today, we'll be discussing the NRS E-Invoicing. And with me, I have the CEO of Duplo, Yele. Hi, Yele.
Hey, Remi.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
There's been a mandate for businesses to switch to e-invoicing, but many businesses see this as just another regulation. From your perspective, what do you think the FIRS is really trying to build with the shift, and why does it matter at a national level?
I'll think about it from two perspectives. So one, on the business side, and then two, the national government side. On the business side, it's estimated that businesses lose between 800 billion naira to 1.2 trillion naira every year due to invoice issues, payment delays, and reconciliation issues as well. The FIRS estimates that the national government is losing about 500 billion naira due to tax leakages. When you think of these numbers, it's incredibly crazy that there's this much gap. Also as well, Nigeria, I think our tax to GDP ratio is about 8.3%, which is below 15%, which is where the average is in Africa. South Africa has, I think, 26% tax to GDP ratio. Kenya is much higher as well. So we are really behind on both how businesses, transact and how the government, makes more money without increasing tax rates. So I think the government is just trying to make it easier for businesses to transact in Nigeria, and they're trying to basically increase government revenue without driving up tax rate as well, which I think is a very commendable thing by the government.
It's great this way businesses automate their process. However, for businesses that still issue PDFs using spreadsheets and manual processes, what practically changes once e-invoicing comes into play?
So if you think of the current workflows for businesses in Nigeria, for most businesses, what would happen is, I supply you something, I then invoice you either through pen and paper or via an email. That process is incredibly inefficient. Now, what happens with the e-invoicing tool is that once I supply you with something and I want to invoice you, you have to actually go through the FIRS for validation, confirmation, and approval as well. So what that does is it actually ensures compliance, standardizes invoices between businesses in Nigeria. So we can actually audit invoices, we can track invoices. And one thing I see actually happening right now is that we see immense growth in how businesses transact. We see less leakages as well in terms of payment delays, and we can actually track how commerce happens in Nigeria. Another thing I see happening that I think is incredibly important is that we actually have a lot of good businesses that are being compliant, but now we're going to level the playing ground for every single one. You have businesses that are not actually compliant with tax regulations, but now that it's been enforced, we'll see a level playing ground for everyone. So we can actually compete as a business in Nigeria.
Some business owners are still worried.
Yeah.
They're worried about how this makes compliance harder rather than easing the process for them. Do you see invoicing as a burden or an advantage, or is there some sort of balance between both?
Mid to long term, there's immense benefits. In the short term, I do see some, I won't call it burden, but I see some challenges for businesses trying to adopt a new system. But if you think about, from a holistic view, businesses lose between 3% to 5% annually due to invoice errors, invoice fraud. If you're a business making 10 billion naira a year, that's about 300 million lost to 500 million lost due to invoice issues. So when you think of that, on the amount saved, that's one thing that I feel like businesses will benefit from this system. Secondly, as well, is reconciliation time as well. When you're having to reconcile manual paper invoices through emails, pen and paper, that takes a while to close your books. But right now we're seeing about 30% to 50% saved in terms of reconciliation time for businesses. Lastly is, I think, just auditing. So when you have, accountants trying to audit your books, it's just easier when there's a one-stop shop for you to basically track your invoices as well. So there's immense benefits for all businesses in Nigeria, big and small. And I'm just really excited that right now is the time where the government is trying to solve for this at scale.
It's great that e-invoicing saves time for businesses. Knowing that you have vast experience in macroeconomics, let me ask you this. Beyond individual companies and businesses, how do you think e-invoicing changes the wider Nigerian economy and the relationship between businesses and the government?
I'll just give you a few examples. So I can think of 4. So you have countries like India, Kenya, Brazil, and Rwanda. These are some of the examples that the Nigerian government is trying to emulate. So for example, India, I think they saw compliance increase by 15%, and that added about $2.1 billion to the government coffers. Brazil as well, I think they saw about 95% compliance within 12 months. So, when you think of the impact of this on the government itself, you can imagine that the government will start taking businesses more seriously. But I think for me, what I hope would happen is that it will be a bilateral relationship where government is listening to businesses and businesses are also adhering to government rules and regulations as well. But, if we are increasing, government coffers without actually increasing the tax rates, I think that's a win-win for everyone in the entire economy. And that's what I hope happens over the next few months.
It's great to hear that it worked for Kenya, India, and other countries. It means that Nigeria is up to a great one.
I hope so.
We've had multiple businesses come to us here in Duplo in the last 4 weeks, stating their confusion on how to go about implementing the mandates. Do you think this is a major challenge, seeing that businesses already have systems that work for them and adopting e-invoicing day-to-day might disrupt their businesses?
Transparently, yes, it could be a challenge, especially when you're trying to revamp systems that have been there for decades or years. And just because of also how far-reaching this mandate is, I do expect that businesses will struggle in the early days. But that's why businesses like Duplo exist, to help businesses navigate this, I won't say difficult, but this challenging situation. But the goal for us at Duplo is to make compliance as invisible as possible. My thesis is that compliance sits within an overarching workflow of invoicing, payments, reconciliation, financial operations as well. So we at Duplo are trying to basically provide a one-stop shop for businesses to manage the entire financial operations, compliance included. Once that happens, I don't think a CFO or business owner will be thinking about compliance or any invoicing at all because it's automated within Duplo's platform. So that's really, our goal. And if that happens, I do believe that most businesses wouldn't struggle. And we'll find this quite easy to actually implement as well.
It's great to hear that compliance is invisible with Duplo. I mean, this is where a lot of businesses struggle.
Yeah.
But tell us a bit about that. Where does Duplo fit in the new e-invoicing ecosystem? And how are you helping businesses adopt it without disrupting their daily operations?
We're helping in so many ways, and I'm very proud about that. But before I get into how Duplo helps businesses, with this, it's incredibly important that I state that, we are one of the few approved and licensed players to help businesses navigate this shift. So we've been approved by the FRS on 2 license levels. So one is the System Integrator SI license and the APP, which is
the access point provider.
Yeah. And, these licenses are very important because now we can help businesses navigate this change in mandates. But going into the details, so right now with Duplo, you can actually generate FRS approved invoices for your customers. Because any invoice you generate on Duplo feeds in directly to the FRS platform as well. You can also get audit trails and you can track your invoices in real time. And when you think of the amount of time saved and the cost saved as well for businesses, I'm just incredibly excited and pumped just to launch this for more businesses across Nigeria as well.
That's incredible. I believe you have those insights because you're a business leader yourself. Now, as a business leader, if you had to give one piece of advice to Nigerian business leaders who are still watching from the sidelines, who are still deciding whether they should integrate to the FRS platform, what would you tell them?
Now, I think, when it comes to policies and mandates and in Nigeria, in the early days, it's usually gray. No one is very sure where the government stands or leans or what the posture is. And then it just becomes black or white. And then you get in trouble for not adhering to those rules in the first place. So what I'll just say and suggest is businesses need to start learning about the possibilities and the importance of this mandate. And they need to start trying to actually onboard platforms like Duplo to become more, compliant with the government. But I think even on the FRS perspective and even Duplo as well as a business, we need to create more awareness and education as well for businesses to understand the implications for this mandate. But yes, my only advice for business leaders and owners to learn more and just try to become, compliant with the policy as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Yele. You heard that the time to comply is now. Visit try.com to learn more.